My name is Sherry Lawson, and at 27, I never believed my voice would matter. Working at the Wellness Foundation, I had grown used to staying quiet, following orders, doing the work, and letting others take the credit. But everything changed one night at our annual charity gala. In front of Chicago's most powerful donors, Amanda Jensen pointed her manicured finger at me and called me filthy and ungrateful. That moment shattered something inside me. But it also awakened a part of me I had silenced for far too long. Before I tell you how I turned the tables on my abuser, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you've ever felt unheard or underestimated, please subscribe. This story is for you. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. My dad was a high school math teacher, and my mom worked long shifts as a nurse. They raised me with 3 values: work hard, value education, and give back to others. Those lessons carried me all the way to becoming the first in my family to graduate from college. I earned my degree in public health at the University of Illinois, graduating with honors. While many of my classmates ran toward 6-figure corporate jobs, I chose nonprofit work. I believed in helping people who needed health care but couldn't afford it. That passion led me to what I thought was my dream job, the Wellness Foundation in Chicago. At first, I was ecstatic. The foundation was nationally recognized for its bold approach to healthcare, building community clinics, launching mobile health units, and fighting for policy reforms. I believed I could truly make a difference there. But behind the glossy glass tower, the breathtaking views of Lake Michigan, and the polished image of success, the foundation's culture was far from healthy, and at the center of it all was Amanda Jensen, the woman who would become my mentor and my tormentor. Amanda was everything I thought I wanted to be: brilliant, respected, powerful. She had built the foundation's reputation and was treated like royalty by donors and colleagues. At first, I felt lucky to be noticed by her. She told me I had something special. She pulled me into late-night meetings, gave me advice, and made me believe she was guiding me to greatness. But her mentorship came with a cost. Every compliment was followed by criticism about my clothes, my voice, even how I said, I found myself staying late, working weekends, and second-guessing everything I did. Her approval became my oxygen, but it was never enough. The goalpost kept moving. Looking back, I see it now. She wasn't mentoring me. She was controlling me. I decorated my small Logan Square apartment with secondhand furniture and plants, trying to remind myself that I had a life outside of work. But the truth was, Amanda had slowly taken over every part of me, and the cracks were beginning to show. This is where I'd stop for this section, before your story moves into the deeper financial manipulation and breakdown. It keeps the pacing tight, dramatic, and emotional, while still setting up Amanda as the antagonist and Sherry as the underdog. Amanda often denied my reimbursement requests with a smile that carried no warmth. The foundation can't cover personal development costs, she would say. Even about a healthcare policy conference she had personally encouraged me to attend. To avoid her disapproval, I began paying for professional expenses out of my own pocket. My first taste of public humiliation came 6 months into the job. We were hosting a luncheon for potential donors, and I had been asked to present our community outreach strategy. I had prepared for weeks, collecting data from successful programs, crafting clear visuals, and practicing every word until it felt natural. When the day came, I stood at the podium feeling steady, confident, and proud of the work. But 3 minutes into my presentation, Amanda interrupted. What Sherry means, she cut in, is that our approach is evidence-based and targeted. It was exactly what I had just said. But she repeated it as though I had failed to communicate properly. Throughout my 20-minute talk, she interrupted 8 more times. Each correction chipped away at my authority. I saw the subtle discomfort on donors' faces. One woman checked her watch over and over. A hospital administrator who had seemed engaged earlier now scrolled through his phone. The audience was slipping away, and with Amanda's constant interruptions, I couldn't win them back. After the luncheon, she pulled me aside. "I had to step in," she said calmly, "because you weren't connecting with the audience. These people respond to confidence and authority. Your delivery was too hesitant." The irony was crushing. My hesitations had begun only after she kept cutting me off. "I'm sorry," I heard myself say automatically. But a small voice inside whispered, "What exactly am I apologizing for?" As I gathered my materials, Jordan, one of my colleagues, approached me. "Hey," he said quietly, "great data on the Southside Clinic outcomes. That 200% increase in diabetes screenings is impressive." His words sounded casual, but the look in his eyes told a different story. He had seen what happened. His nod of quiet solidarity lingered in my mind long after he walked away. In the months that followed, Amanda's demands grew heavier while her recognition for my work diminished. She assigned me to lead a massive federal grant proposal with an impossible 2-week deadline. I worked until midnight most nights, running on coffee and determination. But as the deadline neared, Amanda kept adding more requirements. "We also need a 5-year budget projection and include case studies from similar programs nationwide." Tasks that belonged to Dominic's department suddenly fell on me as well. "Dominic's overloaded with hospital partnerships," Amanda explained smoothly. "Just help out temporarily." That temporary arrangement never ended. Before long, I was managing projects for 2 departments at once. Amanda's text messages came at all hours, 6 in the morning, 11 at night, even on weekends. Every ping carried the unspoken command, "Respond now." When the 300-page grant proposal was finally complete, Amanda presented it to the board without me. At the celebration party, she accepted congratulations while I stood in the background, introduced only as a team member who helped with research. My body began to show signs of what my mind refused to accept. I developed insomnia, lying awake, replaying conversations, second-guessing decisions. Stomach pains became constant, so I carried antacids everywhere. Anxiety attacks struck before meetings. I often found myself gasping for breath in bathroom stalls. It was around this time that I met Grace Williams, and my perspective started to shift. One Saturday, while working at a coffee shop, I heard someone say my name. A woman about my age with curly hair and a gentle smile approached. "You're Sherry, right? From the Wellness Foundation?" I nodded, trying to place her. "I'm Grace. I used to work there. Community Programs Coordinator. Left about a year ago." We chatted lightly until I mentioned working closely with Amanda. At that, her smile faltered. "So, you're her new protege?" Her tone carried both pity and warning. When I confirmed it, she leaned in. "Just be careful. Amanda has patterns." "What she does to rising stars?" Grace stopped herself, then forced a smile. "Never mind. You probably think she's amazing." "She's challenging but brilliant," I said defensively. "I'm learning so much." Grace nodded too quickly. "That's exactly what I said." For about a year. Before leaving, she scribbled her number on a napkin. "If you ever want to talk, call me." I tucked the napkin into my wallet and dismissed her warning as bitterness from someone who hadn't met Amanda's high standards, but her words planted a seed I couldn't ignore. That seed grew, roots when Amanda stole the project I was most proud of, the Healthcare Access Initiative. Had spent months designing a model that partnered with community organizations to reach people who avoided traditional medical settings. The 80-page proposal detailed culturally sensitive care, trust-building strategies, and measurable outcomes. When Amanda asked for the final draft, I handed it over eagerly. 2 days later, I read in the Foundation newsletter that Amanda Jensen had presented her groundbreaking healthcare access initiative to the board and the press. My name was nowhere. The next morning, I learned she'd been nominated for a Civic Leadership Award based on the project. The nomination praised the very elements she had once dismissed when I proposed them. I stared at the announcement, hollow inside. This wasn't a simple oversight. It was a deliberate erasure Jordan noticed. "It's not right," he said, setting a coffee on my desk. "Everyone knows whose idea it was." "Does it matter what everyone knows?" I asked bitterly. "If Amanda controls the narrative, she wins." "Documentation matters," he replied firmly. "Emails, drafts, meeting notes. Keep everything." That night, I created a folder on my personal computer labeled Project Contributions. I began saving evidence, emails with tracked changes, meeting notes, every draft with my fingerprints on it. It didn't solve the problem, but it gave me a sense of control. The isolation tactics began soon after. Amanda made sure I was excluded from projects and meetings. She whispered doubts about my competence to others. She reshaped narratives until even I questioned my memory. "No, I never said that," became her favorite phrase. Even when I had the emails to prove otherwise, I started recording meetings, keeping logs, gathering proof. But the real turning point came at the Foundation's annual charity gala, the night my world changed forever. The Lakeside Hotel ballroom glowed with chandeliers and $10,000 tables draped in cream linens. White roses and hydrangeas filled the air with fragrance. The Foundation's Lotus logo gleamed from napkins, banners, even a massive ice sculpture near the bar. Chicago's elite arrived in waves: senators, city council members, hospital executives, celebrities. Amanda floated among them in a red designer gown, every movement polished, every laugh perfectly timed. I had worked 14-hour days for 3 weeks preparing the gala's keynote presentation and impact report. Yet 2 days before the event, Amanda told me Dominic would present it instead. "He has a more polished style," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. When I checked the final slides, I found that key statistics from my programs had been erased. The narrative now glorified Dominic's projects. That night, I made a choice that would alter everything. I packed a folder with evidence, original slides, impact data, emails proving my work. I didn't know what I planned to do, but I knew one thing. I couldn't stay silent anymore. And as I stepped into that glittering ballroom, surrounded by power, wealth, and lies, I had no idea just how far Amanda's mask was about to slip. The revisions Amanda demanded would normally take hours, yet the program was starting in just 30 minutes. "Then I suggest you work?" "Quickly," she said coolly, before turning to Dominic, who was rehearsing nearby. "Review the changes before you go on." My hands trembled as I hurried to the small office behind the stage. I opened the laptop and began reshaping slide after slide, removing sections, restructuring others, all while trying to preserve the critical data Amanda had insisted on cutting. 15 minutes later, Jordan found me hunched over the keyboard. "Need help?" he asked, closing the door softly behind him. "She wants the entire middle section restructured," I muttered without looking up. "And the community clinic statistics are still missing." "Then I'll fix the layout while you handle the content," he said, pulling up a chair. Together, we worked quickly, sneaking back in some of the vital impact numbers Amanda wanted gone. Not all of them, but enough to tell the truth. And I knew, deep in my chest, I couldn't let the most important data be erased. These numbers weren't just statistics. They represented real people, families who had been helped, lives that had been changed. 5 minutes before showtime, I saved the file and stepped into the ballroom. My heart pounded as I spotted Amanda near the Blackwell family's table, laughing lightly with a champagne flute in her hand. I waited for a pause, then approached quietly. "Amanda, could I have a word about the presentation?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. Her smile stayed, but her eyes hardened. "Can it wait? I'm in the middle of something important." "It's about the community impact data," I said firmly. "The Southside Clinic statistics are still missing. Screenings increased 300%, ER visits dropped 60%. These numbers matter." Her mask slipped in an instant. Her smile vanished, replaced by fury. And then, in a voice loud enough to silence the nearest tables, she spat the words that cut like glass. "She's filthy. She's ungrateful." The ballroom froze. Glasses hovered in midair, conversation stopped mid-sentence. Amanda turned on me, her voice rising. "After everything I've done for her, this is how she repays me? Questioning my judgment in front of our donors?" She gestured to the Blackwells, who shifted uncomfortably. One by one, her accusations grew sharper, more personal. My competence, my professionalism, even my appearance. The humiliation was unbearable. Every face in that room seemed to stare at me, judgment heavy in their eyes. But then, something inside me changed. It was like a weight cracked apart in my chest. I remembered Grace's warnings, the patterns she had described, the way Amanda tore people down. I realized in that moment that this wasn't just about me. If I stayed silent, Amanda would move on to someone else. The cycle would never end, so instead of shrinking, I stepped forward. "I'd like to apologize to everyone," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "This evening is meant to celebrate our work, not personal disputes. But since my professionalism has been questioned in public, I feel obligated to respond with facts." I opened the folder in my hands and lifted the documents high enough for nearby donors to see. The community statistics I mentioned were removed from the presentation by Amanda yesterday at 3:42 p.m. Here are the tracked changes and her initials on the edits. "The data proves our Southside program increased preventative care access by 300% and cut ER visits by 60%. These results matter, and they deserve to be recognized." A murmur rippled through the room. Amanda's confidence faltered for the first time. I continued, voice calm but firm. "This isn't about gratitude or personal credit. This is about integrity. These programs change lives, and the truth shouldn't be erased to fit a narrative." Jordan stepped up beside me. "Sherry's account is accurate," he said. "I worked directly on these materials. The numbers are real." And then, from the entrance, Grace appeared. She walked in with quiet determination, her voice ringing clear. "I left this foundation last year after experiencing the same behavior you've all just witnessed. This is not an isolated case." Her words cracked Amanda's control. Other employees stepped forward too, nodding, raising their hands, adding their voices. The silence that followed was no longer Amanda's weapon. It was her downfall. For the first time, Amanda looked cornered. Dr. Shaw finally intervened, his voice carrying authority. "We will address these concerns properly. Amanda, board members, Sherry, let's move this discussion to a private room." Amanda tried to object, but the tide had turned. Donors looked away from her, whispering to each other. The Blackwells leaned closer, their expressions serious. As I gathered my documents, Mrs. Blackwell touched my arm gently. "That took courage," she said softly. "The foundation needs more of that, not less." Her words steadied me. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but one thing was certain. Amanda's power was cracking. The truth was finally coming to light. And though fear still churned inside me, I knew something had shifted forever. I had found my voice, and I wasn't going back. Finding support outside the foundation became essential to my survival. Grace arranged a lunch with 3 other former employees who had also endured Amanda's abuse of power. The 5 of us sat in a quiet restaurant far from the foundation's offices, sharing stories that echoed each other in chilling detail. She told donors my community program was flawed. After presenting my exact proposal as her own, said Andrea Thompson, who had left a year and a half ago. When I asked why my name was removed from the annual report for a project I designed, Melissa Chen added, she told the team I was trying to steal credit for collaborative work. That day, we formed an informal support group. We met weekly, swapping updates, encouraging each other, and slowly piecing back together the confidence Amanda had tried to strip away. The validation of hearing identical patterns helped me trust my own perceptions after months of gaslighting. Even current employees began quietly approaching me. Too afraid to speak officially to investigators, they still wanted me to know I wasn't alone. To protect them, we created an anonymous email account so they could share their experiences without fear of retaliation. Through these connections, I uncovered Amanda's history at previous organizations. The same pattern appeared again and again, hidden under confidentiality agreements and glowing references that allowed her to climb higher while leaving damaged people behind. For the first time in months, I felt the relief of being believed. Nightmares eased, sleep returned, though the workplace remained tense. I set strict boundaries, documenting every interaction with Amanda, copying witnesses into emails, refusing to be cornered. 3 weeks after the gala, the board called a special meeting. The external investigation had revealed misconduct even deeper than I imagined. A financial audit uncovered suspicious expense reports and irregular donor fund allocations. Amanda was placed on administrative leave. The press began circling. The foundation issued vague statements about leadership restructuring and renewed commitment to core values. Dominic, once her loyal supporter, now claimed he had always been concerned about Amanda's style. I tried to shield the team, he said, rewriting history to save himself. I didn't engage in gossip. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice, for myself, and for everyone Amanda had hurt. Behind the scenes, donors began asking for private meetings with me. Mrs. Blackwell said during one such visit, "We were impressed by your integrity. It's refreshing to see someone stand up for the work instead of personal ambition." Senator Williams echoed her words. "The healthcare statistics you shared, the ones that were removed from the presentation, those are exactly the results we need to justify continued partnerships." Slowly, the foundation began rebuilding from within. For the first time in a long while, I felt hope, for the mission, for the team, and for myself. But healing wasn't immediate. Though Amanda was gone, her shadow lingered. I woke in cold sweats from nightmares of public humiliation. Harmless questions from colleagues triggered waves of panic as my body braced for the next attack. "You experienced workplace trauma," explained Dr. Ramirez, a therapist Grace recommended. "Your body stayed in survival mode. Now that you're safer, everything is surfacing." Her words made sense. Weekly sessions became my lifeline. She taught me to anchor myself in truth. Write down what you know to be real. When doubt creeps in, return to those words. My journal filled with affirmations. My work on the Southside Clinic initiative was impactful. I remember the timeline of the grant proposal accurately. My concerns about credit were legitimate. Gradually, these truths rewired my trust in myself. Sleep improved, headaches faded, and I regained the weight I'd lost. I began reconnecting with old friends. Lisa, my college roommate, visited from Milwaukee. During a long walk along Lake Michigan, she said, "The Sherry I know would never let anyone make her doubt herself. That confidence is still there. It's just been buried." her words stuck. The woman who had joined the foundation 3 years earlier, idealistic and strong, had been broken down, but not destroyed. Piece by piece, I was rebuilding her. Small victories followed. Speaking in meetings without fear, making decisions without second-guessing, spotting manipulative tactics and setting firm boundaries. Each step rebuilt my professional confidence. Meanwhile, the foundation underwent its own transformation. With Amanda gone, the board asked me to temporarily lead community outreach, the very department where my work had been stolen. I chose to lead differently. Where Amanda created competition, I encouraged collaboration. Where she hoarded information, I practiced transparency. Where she took credit, I gave recognition. For our next presentation, I told my team, I want a slide that lists everyone who contributed, no matter their role. Everyone deserves credit. The shock on their faces said it all. Relief followed. Slowly, the culture shifted. We built protocols ensuring project roles were clear from start to finish. Meetings included time for praising colleagues, not just self-promotion. Performance reviews valued collaboration as much as individual results. Community partners noticed too. The Southside program expanded into 3 more neighborhoods. The Healthcare Access Initiative won recognition from the State Medical Association. When my name was called at the awards ceremony, Jordan stood, leading the ovation. Even Dr. Shaw, who had once dismissed my concerns, admitted his failure. I owe you an apology, he said months later. I should have recognized the pattern. Sometimes authority blinds us to abuse. 1 year after Amanda's departure, I faced a choice. The foundation offered me a permanent director role. Senator Williams invited me to join her healthcare commission at the state level. Both paths promised meaningful impact. I thought deeply about what I had learned. What kind of leader did I want to be? Where could I create the most change? Whichever I chose, one truth was clear. I would carry the lessons of this experience forward. Working with HR, I helped design new anti-bullying policies with real accountability. We built an anonymous reporting system and transparent investigations. We created a mentoring program with multiple guides per mentee, ensuring no one could be isolated the way Amanda had isolated us. Grace returned as a consultant, helping us train nonprofits across Chicago on recognizing manipulation and protecting staff. What you went through isn't unique, I told one workshop. But how we respond can be. We can set a new standard. Gradually, culture transformed. Staff stayed longer. Exit interviews spoke of satisfaction, not fear. The foundation attracted new talent, drawn to our reputation for ethical leadership. As the anniversary of that fateful gala approached, I reflected on everything that had changed. The people-pleaser who once stayed silent for approval had become a leader who spoke up, not just for herself, but for others. Amanda eventually resigned from the sector entirely, moving into corporate consulting. The news stirred no anger or satisfaction in me, just a quiet hope that her patterns wouldn't repeat elsewhere. Under our new leadership, the foundation achieved record fundraising, over $6 million, driven by trust, transparency, and true impact. Donors cited one reason above all. They finally believed in us again. And as Mrs. Blackwell told me on a site visit, your programs are making measurable differences. That's what real leadership looks like. 1 year after everything began, I stood once again in the Lakeside Hotel ballroom. But this time, I wasn't a silenced subordinate hiding in the shadows. I was at the podium, speaking as a recognized leader. Looking out at the audience, some faces familiar, others new, I didn't feel triumph or bitterness. What I felt was profound gratitude for the journey that had brought me here. The Foundation's work continues to grow and change, just as we do through life's challenges. True success isn't measured in awards or recognition. It's measured in lives improved, communities strengthened, and the culture of integrity we build together. Over the past year, I learned that the deepest changes don't always appear on organizational charts or in fundraising reports. They live in how we show up in our relationships, in the boundaries we protect without apology, and in the courage to refuse shrinking ourselves just to make others comfortable. The irony, as I once told Dr. Ramirez in one of our last sessions, is that Amanda's attempt to silence me ultimately gave me a stronger voice than I ever thought possible. Dr. Ramirez smiled and said, "That's often how it works. Growth is born from hardship, though that never excuses the harm done." Her words stayed with me. Because the truth is, yes, it was painful, even traumatic. But it was also transformative. I discovered strength I didn't know I had, and I found purpose in creating spaces where others can thrive without fear. The shame Amanda once tried to place on me that night at the gala had finally returned to where it belonged. Shame does not live with those who are mistreated. It belongs to those who misuse their power. It does not belong to those who speak their truth. It belongs to those who try to silence it. And it does not belong to those who stand in authenticity. It belongs to those who twist reality for their own gain. So here I am, 1 year later, speaking from the same stage where I was once humiliated. And I say this, the measure of our success is not in the applause we receive, but in the lives we change together. Have you ever stood up to someone who tried to diminish you? How did finding your voice change your life? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And if this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to be reminded. Their truth matters. Remember this, shame never belongs to those who speak truth to power. It belongs only to those who abuse that power. Thank you for listening to my story.